Hello my friends, this is Sandra Torno with Sandra Torno Art. I wanted to jump on here real quick. On my last video I had mentioned I was going to use the rest of my leftover paint to make some backgrounds for my watercolor paper. I like to do this with it left over. I water it down, but I keep it in the tray separated because I don't want to necessarily brush it on in the beginning or the middle. At the end I might a little bit. But I want to just lay the paper in there, get it saturated, get the colors mixing on their own, and then I let it dry, and you can use it to paint scenes on top of with either gouache or watercolor. You can doodle with it. A lot of times after you do this, you see a lot of different shapes and sizes of things in the picture that you can make doodles out of. So I've got a 9 by 12 here, and I am going to wet this and put it in the wet watercolor, and we're going to see what we come out with. You can't control it, so that's one reason why I don't mix it. I want to just let it do its own thing. You want to wet it evenly, but you don't want any puddles. I'm using my large mop say that 10 times fast. My large mop brush to wet this 140-pound paper. I will tell you also, doing it this way, you're going to get paint on the back. So you need to think about, excuse me, whatever you do use it for, you're going to have to cover the back either by a matte board if you're going to frame the picture, or cut it up and attach it to panel board, which I have a video for that. I'll link in the description. Or you could even use some Mod Podge and put some newspaper print on the back, and then you could cut out bookmarks, and it would be a two-sided bookmark. So it's endless possibilities, but just know that the back side of this is going to have some paint on it as well. In addition to that, I'm going to have to flatten this after I finish. Number one, it's saturated. Number two, it's not stretched. Number three, it's going to take a lot of paint, and I'm going to let it dry. It's going to be okay, but it's still going to need to be flattened. The way I flatten mine, I'll tell you at the end, so that if you need to do that, you'll know. So it's all wet, it's all shiny. You want to hold it up and make sure all areas are covered. There's a small area here I need to make sure it's wet. And again, just no puddles, no water dripping, just the paper is completely wet. So I'm going to mix up my paint, just making sure it has enough water in it. You don't want it very dry. We're going to use everything that's here. And in the middle of this, I will probably end up spraying some water in here to get some more, get it even more water in the paint. So I just take my tray. This is my palette I use, and you just start pressing down in areas of different colors. I could lay the whole paper in here, but what I really want to do is try to get different textures, different designs with the paint mixing. Maybe if you want a certain color in a certain area, and you can manage that pretty well. But you just continue. See, that's how you get the paint on the back. It's gonna happen. So like I said, therefore the back would need to be covered or framed and matted to cover that up. You couldn't cut bookmarks out of this and have a painted, sloppy background. So I'm just adding a little bit more water. It just gets it gets dry really easy because it soaks into that paper. Just keep manipulating it. Keep pressing down, making sure we want to cover everything. I want to do this as much as possible before I use the brush or put any sprayed water on it. A little patience, just keep going at it. Believe me, at the end it'll be well worth the effort. So I had a lot of greens and blues. So it's going to be like a foresty, darker background. It just depends on what you've been painting as to what colors you have in your palette. I did have some, looks like some oranges and blues, but mainly green. So here I'm going to spray my palette just to get some more water running. Liquefy it, thin it out a little bit, and start the process over. It also depends on how much paint you have left over that, if you want to, you don't have to clean your palette. Just after a certain length of time, after I reuse it 2 or 3, 4 times and it starts getting muddy, it just makes your life easier if you just reuse the paint in some other fashion. And to me, this is a good option. I definitely will get a second sheet done out of this paint. I'm not going to video that part, but I'll show you at the end what they come out like. Almost there. This is that Amazon Basics paper I told you about in the beach video. It's very inexpensive, and for stuff like this that you're experimenting with, or if you know it works like I do on certain things. I know I struggled with the beach and ocean bookmarks with it, but in the end it came out and I would do it again. It's well worth it. Paper is so expensive, and if I'm doing a detailed painting like a bird or a flower in great detail, then I would definitely use a 140-pound Arches paper. But now I'm going to do some spattering of some paint, mixing in a little bit on the paper myself with the brush. But I wanted to do this as minimally as possible so the colors could merge themselves without being manipulated. Now I have my acrylic board down, but I will tell you I'm still getting paint on my desk, which mine will wipe up with a wet rag because it's the slatwood contact paper, and it just wipes up beautifully. But if you're going to be doing this on your dining room table, you might want to put a large piece of cardboard or even something that you can throw away or wash, because you can make a mess with this on you, the table, on everything. But it's fun. You can take out your frustrations on it. Okay, so here I'm going to spray some water just to keep it wet and keep it moving. I'm wanting to add some salt to this here in a minute. And the salt will spread the paint away from the paper and cause blossoms. Um, and it gives some really neat texture effects when you want them. Doing a little bit more splattering now. It's just however much you feel like you want to put on. It's your choice. There's no right or wrong. You can't mess this up. This will dry back a lot lighter. So it just depends. Do you want a real light background? Put it on light, or do you want a little bit darker background and put it on and let it lighten up some? So I did sprinkle salt on this, just regular table salt. I went to go get a piece of saran wrap and grab the salt, and I went ahead and just sprinkled that on. It's no trick to it. Just pour some, uh, probably a teaspoon in your hand, in the palm of your hand, sprinkle it on your painting. I sprinkled it all over. Have a piece of saran wrap here. I scrunch it up to make it wrinkly and then put it on top all over the painting, and you just let it, you push it down and make sure it's stuck to the paper. You want to push out any air bubbles that you see. You want to crinkle it up where there's some wrinkles in the saran wrap on the paper. You just want it adhered to the drawing. You don't want any open spaces, and just work with it and they'll all work out. You want the wrinkles. You just don't want the big air bubbles, because you're not going to get anything. The wrinkles will give you texture. The and lines, the air bubbles are just going to be blank. So just press it down real good, and then it's ready to be dried for about, I'd say, 6 to 8 hours. I just left it on the acrylic board and let it dry like this, and then you take it off and brush the salt off. Okay, I wanted to just jump in here for one last second. Um, After I had the saran wrap and let these dry for about 5 or 6 hours, I took it off, and as you can tell, it's got this amazing texture on it. Um, Pretty flat. There is paint on this side because of the way that I did it. So I couldn't do bookmarks with this because this would be dirty. um, I actually had enough to do a second one to get my palette clean, and this is the way it turned out, a little more white. And so what I did is I flattened both of these overnight. I wet the back, um, put them on my acrylic tray face down, put a piece of light cardboard on the wet part, put a whole lot of books on them. I even put 2 4-pound weights on them, let them dry overnight, and they came out pretty well flat. So it feels like vinyl, it's so thick. Um, what I am going to do with mine in a project with you at some point in the near future, I'm going to cut them out into 4x6s, and I'm going to paint flowers on them, just like one flower with this as the background, no stem, pretty generic. And then I'm going to adhere them to my panel cradle boards and varnish them. And I have a video showing you how to attach watercolor to cradle boards and varnishing it that I'll link in the description below. But that's what I'm going to do with these. I'm going to make little 4x6s. I'll lose about an inch, and that'll give me 8 different flowers. I could do a grouping of similar flowers so people can have a grouping if they want for their bathroom or bedroom or entryway. This one right here actually is a pretty thick piece of paint that didn't get mixed up very well, and it's kind of unlevel there, but it'll be fine. That may be where I cut the end off there. Everything else is smooth and flat, so I'm really happy how they turned out, but I want to show you the texture in this. I mean, it is just so beautiful. So, I mean, you could do a full sheet and paint trees and limbs and leaves and have a forest or a mountain range. I mean, there's so many possibilities. You could actually make it smaller or keep it big and do some doodles and make things out of the marks on here as to what you see and make them certain things. You could put little watercolor drops on these salt spreads here and make little pasture of flowers. I mean, the possibilities are endless. So I'm really pleased with how they turned out. So I'm going to let y'all go. I have to go do the audio on the video I did of the first part of this because I found out last night that my wireless microphone went dead and it didn't video that one after I had done that hour-long video on the beach bookmarks. So lesson learned. After an hour, I need to recharge my uh, wireless microphone. But have a great day and thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit notifications. We're still going to do the leaf tutorial probably, I'm hoping next week. Don't hold me to that, but there's quite a few things going on. But um, I still love my bookmarks. I got to get 3 of these out to a friend that wanted some, and but I'm really happy with those too. That video is the hour-long video up on my YouTube channel as well. But have a great day. Talk to you soon, and be safe. Bye for now.